dictated. Like if you're in an environment where the person was naturally a nasty rugger anyway, and just will not pay you any heed whatsoever, sometimes the only energy that they understand is that violent energy. So you give that out to get that back. But that's rare. For me, that's why I don't like provoking. I prefer to treat the spirit world very much like I treat everyone in this room. I will bid every one of you the time of day. And that's the way I expect to be treated as well. And that's the way I treat them. So provoking, I'm very, very careful about where I use it. And for the most part, I'm very respectful of the spirit world. Very cautious as well. You've got to know what you're dealing with, of course. But again, it's like everything else. Little baby steps, and you'll get there.
I imagine the spirit world prices an hour. You got before that that are evil.
We want to see that.
Have you ever been followed or stopped even followed?
Oh, many times. Yeah, you tend to get ones that will latch on and follow you back to your home, whether you like it or not. And it doesn't matter what protection you've got up and everything else. It's one of those things. It was interesting to note that whenever I was writing the book, The Influence, which deals on how some of the spirit world can influence some of our thoughts and our actions, that the warning that I was given was don't become too bright or they see you. And I have paid attention to that ever since. And interestingly, the tests that go on around the world globally with EVP, they keep asking the same question, how do you see us? And it keeps coming back with the same answer as light. And everything's starting to fall into place. You become too bright, they see you, they'll follow. A bright light attracts flies. So you've got to remember that. I'll just go to that lady behind there.
What is the strongest piece of evidence that you or your crew have ever obtained that supports the paranormal?
The strongest thing for me was whenever I was in Tasmania, and I was taking a picture of an old church in Port Arthur. There was a 30-second exposure, and there was a guy mid-stride walking in front of the church. It was an impossible shot to get. That guy should have left on an open exposure. Should have left a line from one side to the other. Instead, I got a fixed figure mid-stride, solid as you and I, and it was impossible.
Wow.
And yet I was watching the church. There was no one there, but the full spectrum cameras were on.
Wow.
So that to me was the most impressive so far. There is other stuff, of course, leading from GHI where I'm working now, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And I think if I showed you some of the stuff, you wouldn't sleep for weeks.
I don't sleep anyway.
Next. Yes.
Do you think a person of faith would be treated any differently by the spirit world as opposed to somebody who may not believe in God or have any kind of religion?
You know, sometimes I find that the skeptics can be hit harder than the people who believe.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you because of the...
Sometimes I find that the skeptics can be hit much harder than the people who have faith. And I'm not religious to say I don't follow a religion, but I'm very spiritual, which I see as two distinct different things. I have no problem with religion and everything else. That's fine. But no, I tend to find skeptics are the ones who have the biggest problem with it if it starts to happen.
Or the ones that don't want to be able to
Yes. And if they want to prove a point, they'll prove a point. No matter who you are, really. But they seem to take greater pleasure in the skeptics and make them confront it. Yes.
Do you really believe that if the spirit doesn't want you to see it, it won't?
That's right.
I've seen some shows that they're like, oh, he's trying to hide from us, but we can find him anyway.
Nope. If they don't want to be found, they won't be found. And that's why I find with being working in GHI and things like that, if I take a step forward, say to yourself, if I take a step forward, put my hand out to shake your hand, see what happens? He took a step forward and shook mine. So you got to meet them halfway, and that's a big thing. And again, that's about respect as well. Not being so arrogant as to think, you will appear to me now. You know, that's just sheer arrogance in that part. You've got to have some understanding and some ounce of respect. So, next. Yes?
Have you ever encountered anything that you can clearly see or hear, but your instrument just can't record?
Yes.
How often does that happen?
How does it happen?
How often does it happen?
Oh, that's rare. Yeah, I've found that's rare. In fact, I find a lot of the stuff, if they don't want to be recorded on anything, those instruments will go down, and then it will appear more so than anything else. But there seems to be some type of rule that they're not to be seen on technology. Whatever that rule is, I don't actually know. But yeah, they tend to stray away from it. Now, there is a problem with technology in that ultraviolet light will oppose some of the darker negative entities. So if you've got a problem room or a problem house, the ultraviolet light will create a safe room. They cannot materialize. The bonds break down within that light frequency. Likewise, positive, we find that during materialization, the infrared light from our night vision cameras can also cause the same problems for the other side. So you've got to try and find that middle road, and not be too damaging, and understand the form of materialization and what is actually occurring. They find it easier to materialize in red light above all others, but try and reduce it as much as you can.
Do you believe the thing like things go up in the night where he just manifests himself at night rather than during the day?
So some of them, yes, they will find it easier to manifest at night. Some of them will manifest during the day. It's more rare for them to manifest during the day than it is at night. Next.
Communication-wise, do you usually get a feeling before you see something? I usually get like a gut feeling where you just feel like something's off. I don't know, like you feel like something's there but you can't see anything.
Yeah, you tend to get that.